Okay, great. And we are good. Okay, so welcome everybody. Happy Tuesday afternoon. We made it this far. Today's CAS Conversation is the first in a series, we're hoping. This is put forward by the Racial Equity Task Force led by Lana Ubinski, and Lana and I have partnered over the last several months, along with Allison, our chair of CAS, to bring this program to you. Lana will share in a little bit, how we arrived at this particular topic in this particular format. She'll share more about what the Racial Equity Task Force is. But just, to give everybody an idea of what to expect today, today's conversation is called How Morris County Providers Can Better Respond to the Diversity of Our Community. And this is something that we're at this phase of, identifying and taking action, what can we do? So the CAS community wants to know, what can we do? And this is, an opportunity for us to sit back and learn, and then figure out what can we take away from this conversation and do at our individual agencies, in our work, in our service, in our networks. And during the Q&A today, I think that's a great opportunity to share some of your thoughts and your takeaways, run them by our experts who will be having the conversation today, and encourage, each other and hold each other accountable to what action steps can we take based on what we learn. So we will get to that in a moment. Really quickly, who we have with us today is the founder of Black Lives Matter Morristown, Tiana Kimbrough. Welcome, Tiana. Thank you for being here. And the executive director of MCOA, Morris County Office of Hispanic Affairs, Xiomara Guevara. I'm sorry, I was so nervous about messing up your name, and it's such a beautiful name. So I stumbled that out, but they will talk more about their work and their agencies in a minute. And that will be the first question that we cover is what do you do? What do we need to know about the work of your agencies? Both of these women, they have all of my admiration and respect for the work that they do. It's been so nice just to have some of these planning conversations with them because I've already learned so much. So I'm really excited for everybody on today's call to be able to take away just their insight. And they're out there every day doing this work. And so I'd really like to follow their lead and their example that they've set. And they're, like I said, they're the experts in this. So in each of their agencies or their organizations, this is what they do. So we'll get into that in just a moment. So for anybody who's not familiar with CAS, CAS is a subcommittee of the Morris County Continuum of Care, whose goal is to end homelessness in our community. And the program is designed to promote community-wide planning and strategic use of resources to address homelessness, improve coordination and integration with mainstream resources and other programs targeted at people experiencing homelessness. And through the CAS committee, we bring in a variety of providers and different voices who we feel are doing this work, and we want to partner with them and we want to support their efforts. And so this conversation is very much a part of that. How do we support the work of MCOA? How do we support the work of Black Lives Matter Morristown through our community in CAS and Morris County at large and beyond? So for anybody who doesn't know me, my name is Becca Butts. I'm the training coordinator. I also have Lana Ubinski, and she can introduce herself as well and share a little bit about the Racial Equity Task Force. And before she can get ready to unmute herself at any minute, I did say I would cover some housekeeping items. So I just wanted to tell everybody the conversation today should run about 45 minutes. We'll have about 30 minutes of Q&A at the end, which of course you can ask questions. But like I said before, I would really like for people to be thinking, what can I do? And share that with the group, because this is a great forum to just throw your ideas out there and see what do people have feedback? Do they have suggestions? Have they done that before? Everybody is muted now, but you'll be able to take yourself off of mute during the Q&A. And I think that's everything. If you want to be able to really see the speakers, you can go to the top right of your screen. I'll take down this lovely flyer that Lana made. And if you put speaker view, you'll be able to see the person who's currently talking instead of all of the participants. So if that's helpful, please do that. And Lana, go ahead. I think I've talked more than enough.
Thank you, Becca. Hi, everybody. I'm Lana Ubinski. I am part of the Racial Equity Task Force in Morris County, and I'm really pleased to be co-facilitating this event this afternoon. This event is really the culmination of a lot of efforts in Morris County to start having more meaningful conversations about diversity, equity, and inclusion in service provision for people experiencing housing instability and homelessness. And so I guess to frame out what the Racial Equity Task Force's intention is, what we know is that statistically, being a person of color is a better indicator of disproportionate homelessness than poverty is. So just to break that out into sort of layman's language, we can tell whether your odds of being homeless at some point in your life are higher based on your race and ethnicity, as opposed to an indicator like poverty, right, or socioeconomic status. And so with that in mind, the county really made a decision that we needed to start looking at all of our service provision through the lens of diversity, equity, and inclusion, looking at race and ethnicity factors, and looking at who in our county is most vulnerable and disproportionately sort of representing in the population of people experiencing homelessness. And so that's really what the Racial Equity Task Force is kind of assigned to do, is look at the scope of our work, right? Decide what interventions might be useful, determine what education is necessary for service providers. For those involved with CAS, I'm sure that over the past couple of months, you've engaged in a lot of the different trainings that we have conducted and taken part in that really focus on just the nitty-gritty of understanding some of these different phenomena. So this is really the extension of those trainings, right? Now we're starting to really have a conversation and really start leaning towards action. And so for today's event, I really hope that everyone present can set the intention to really think about what they can do in their specific role in the community to address people of color experiencing homelessness and housing instability. So what can you do, right? So everyone in this space, this virtual space today, has different levels of power and privilege. Some of us might be directors or executive directors or CEOs. Some of us might be direct service staff. Some of us might be community advocates. Some of us might be a combination of all those things, community members, right? Residents who live in this county. And so please set the intention to consider, what can you do? What is the piece of work that you can offer to this larger challenge that lies ahead of us? So just please keep that in mind. And then once again, this is just a reminder, everyone is muted. If you have questions, please add them to the chat. We'll talk about questions during the Q&A. So just know that any questions will be addressed at that portion. And with that said, I'd love to just dive into the first question that we have for our panelists who are part of this conversation this afternoon. So the first question, and either one of our panelists can begin. The first question is really in regard to service provision, right? So in Morris County, as service providers, we are really beholden to a lot of different outcome measures, right, that inform the work that we do. So a lot of us have different funding sources that really require us to present the data on who we serve in a very specific way. And a lot of that relies on traditional demographic information and categories like race, ethnicity, gender, so on. And there's a limitation, right, to this practice because it oftentimes can flatten the diversity within specific groups. And so what I'd love for you to do is kind of twofold. One, if there's anything you'd like to say in introduction of yourself that Becca and I didn't share, we want you to say that and share that just to begin off the top. But then two, if you could talk to or speak to examples of community flattening that you've seen in your work and how it impacts the provision of services and the receipt of services of consumers that we serve. So maybe we'll start with Xiomara. Xiomara, I'm trying to say it correctly. We'll start with you.
Not a problem, and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Xiomara Guevara, and I've been the Executive Director to Morris County Organization for Hispanic Affairs for about 15 years now. Before this, I was a teacher and another director at another nonprofit in Newark. And so it's, kind of my experience to have worked in the service area for my whole life, I guess, over 20 something years, if that, as I'm dating myself here, but that's the work that we've been doing. And here at Hispanic Affairs, I'm hoping that you guys are a little bit of aware of what we've done, what we do, but just so that we work out of about 5 different departments. The one that we're most known as the Home Energy Assistance and Weatherization Program. We're the only ones in the county that provides this service. So in that, we see about close to 4,500 to 5,000 families any given year throughout all of Morris County. And through our weatherization program, we've worked in houses in every town municipality in Morris County as well. So we kind of knew both geographically and touch a lot of the families in the county. Other services that we provide, transportation services. So we provide transportation services to social service or medical facilities. In the past, we've also provided transportation to Head Start children, preschool children. Currently, we're doing summer camp for children at the JBWS shelter. So we do a little bit of that sort of transportation throughout the year. We do have a case manager. So I call more than a case manager, more of a client advocate. Someone who walks in, needs help with filling out child support application or filing a complaint for an employer who didn't pay. So that sort of thing. So any question you come in, we sort of try to figure out, can we help or do we refer out? And I think most of the time we're referring out. We have education services. So we have a Hispanic Women's Resource Center. It's one of 4 in the state and really focuses on getting Hispanic women into the workforce or back into the workforce. And so that's sort of like in our education realm, as well as citizenship classes. Probably one of the things I'm most proud about is we created something that we call the Center for Citizenship and Legal Immigration, where we have in-house attorneys providing help with immigration cases. I'm proud of it because one of the work that we do, and even though it's one of the hardest funded groups, is that programs it's all private funding. And so it gives us the ability to serve the undocumented, which if we accepted some of the government grants for immigration services, we wouldn't have been able to do. And so through that program, we work with the Family Justice Center and other organizations. We do a lot of pro bono work, so a lot of unaccompanied minors who come in, mental health service clients, just homeless clients. We have a lot of different clients that come in for immigration services, and we do a lot of pro bono there because of that work that we do. So kind of in a nutshell, then we do anything else that comes in, right? So if somebody needs interpretation services, somebody needs a translation, somebody needs notarization. Currently, our offices are a little overwhelmed. Once New Jersey allowed for undocumented residents to be able to apply for New Jersey driver's licenses, there was a lot of need for translation services of licenses from home countries or other documents. And so we've been providing that, and that has been kind of overwhelming this summer. But as time goes by and as something different comes up, I feel like the office always has that front. And so to tell you a little bit about who I am, so I'm the executive director. I'm also an attorney and provide some of the immigration services directly to the clients. I am a professor at FDU, specifically to work with adults who come from Latin America who are doing the transition to now go into the workplace in this country. And I think more importantly and more personally, I am a daughter of immigrants to this country who both were undocumented at some point, and who then have raise, a family and have become part of citizens of this country. And so I think importantly, the work that I do every day, the work that we do at Hispanic Affairs is always thinking about the community and what our past experiences have been, both as the staff and as the leader here. When it comes to the first question, in terms of asking how have we seen some of the services flattening, I think one of the things that we even spoke on our planning meetings, which I think is always something that comes up to me when we're talking about race and ethnicity, is that in a lot of the demographics and a lot of the data collection that we do, we ask about race. And I think as Hispanics, many times, or Latinos, as many people identify with either or, sometimes that's a difficult question. And I don't know if a lot of you noticed it, but there's always the question, what's your race? And then what's your ethnicity? So are you Latino, right? Or are you Hispanic or you're not? And when it comes to the race question, I think that that's where it's the first issue, the first problem. If you think about the Hispanic or the Latino community, we do not fall into one race specifically. It is a multiracial, I never check the box as white Hispanic because I don't consider myself as being white Hispanic, or do I consider myself, other people perceiving me to be a white Hispanic? And so I think that there's the underlying problem, right? That's the first question. So most of the time I check off the box other, because I'm not really sure how to identify myself in the boxes that are provided to me, right? And so if somebody's capturing the database, then, data information, then I'm in another, right? And many times that other is never significant in that data capturing. And I tell you this personally, but I also know that we have these conversations within my staff here, within our clients, because we're helping fill out these forms, and we're, so when the question comes up, it's always like, well, what do I put? What should I put? What do I do? And those questions, and obviously there's a history of colonialization that comes into many of our countries in Latin America. So there's a lot of conversation, right? Where do I fit in? But at the end of the day, as a service provider, we know that where our clients check off a box may mean a lot of, may mean underfunding, may mean, sending, not looking at programs here, or just not looking at the community as a whole. So for me, I think that that's where we start off with the problem once we start out filling out applications for help or whatever. So in a nutshell, that's my answer to the first question. Tana.
Well, you basically took the words like right out of my mouth, because I was going to say the exact same thing. You said it so beautifully. Working within the child welfare system, that is a big thing that I have seen within the last 5 years. And it's one thing for a person to acknowledge, like, wait, I don't fit that box. I don't want to check off that box, right? But oftentimes if you put your shoes in a client's, right, they're being told what to put. They're being told, you need to check that box because this is how I see you, right? So in their mind, okay, this person who's supposed to be helping me is telling me to check this box, so I have to check this box. But if they don't have someone else in their corner, if they're not surrounding themselves with people who are advocating for, look, you need to represent yourself. This is who you are. This is what you need to put down on paper, and what you put down on paper actually matters and can make a difference in the services that you're receiving, then they don't know. And it is our job as service providers to inform not just our staff and our co-workers, and we need to inform the community. So we need to be having this conversation outside of our workplace, and be having the conversation on community forums just like this. So, right, everyone here can say, yo, that makes sense. Let me take this back now and share this information within my own community so they can know better and do better. Because like she mentioned, we know that if certain numbers don't add up to what we're asking for, then we're not going to get the money for it. And that is a disservice to the community that we're trying to serve. It helps no one. So I do think that even possibly implementing some trainings in the workplace, or some trainings within the community, at community town events, within churches, just to show people there are other, there are other ways that you can fill out paperwork. And before you just fill out anything, if you are unsure of what to put, go to this person, go to this resource and ask them what talk to them, or go back to your family and ask them, how do we identify ourselves? Right? Because they're telling me that I'm white, but I might, I might identify myself as Afro-Latina. And so I'm seeing that a lot. So I think it's just important to just really talk to the community about it. And I think there may be some movement that way, because at least if you're having these conversations within the workplace, or you're not having these conversations with the workplace, at least the clients that we are serving, or the ones who are looking for these resources, when they go in to ask for assistance, they know what they need to mark off.
Thank you so much for that, Tiana. And I want to circle back and just give you a chance to talk a little bit more about Black Lives Matter Morristown, and anything in depth you want to share about your work that Becca wasn't able to cover in the introduction.
Yes, of course. Thank you, Lana. So I am the founder of the Black Lives Matter Morristown chapter here in Morristown, established back in 2016. Really took a big spin for the better last year, unfortunately, after George Floyd's murder. However, through that 10-week summer series of teach-ins and protests and meeting with school boards and police chiefs, I think personally, that has helped me find authentically who I am, and really helped me focus on the work that I truly am passionate about. And I think will also make a big difference with the work that's done in Morris County. And I say that because a lot of people think that we are only servicing Morristown. So sometimes they might not seek to reach out to us if there's a problem in, say, Roxbury, right? Or if there's a problem in Chatham, they might not reach out because they know that's Morristown. They only deal with the Morristown. But no, after last year, we had touched Morris County. We touched outside of Morris County, and people look to us as a support, an advocate. And it doesn't always have to be related to race, right? It doesn't have to always be race relation. It can be the needs of their family needs, right? Some resources. So, I think what's big, I think that most people do know about Black Lives Matter Morristown is that we are a giving organization. We have always sought to see how can we make our community better. We are always looking to identify the needs of our community that we are serving. And with that, we did have 2 successful donation drives, one toy drive last year, and we started an initiative for Adopt a Family, and it was so successful. And this year we want to actually have it longer than 3 weeks because we jam pack it in there. But we want to actually extend it this year and maybe start a little bit earlier, and also invite other organizations and agencies that might want to sponsor with us for families, because I think that if we were able to touch over 26 families, and that's like, some families were like 8 individuals in that family. So you guys do the math. I think if we can touch more people, especially after a pandemic, we are all still kind of working our way through that financially. I think that would make a huge difference this year for our the underserved communities. So if there's any agencies or organizations that you know of, or that you are a part of, that you believe that would want to partake in the next toy drive or partake in the next Adopt a Family initiative, my contact is, all the same. You can find us on Instagram at BLM Morristown, email directly, I answer, blmmorristown@gmail.com, and we can have the conversation on how we can work together. I'm always big on partnering. So if anybody wants to partner with me, I always want to partner with you, because we all have the same drive, right? We're all looking to take care of our community. So I just hope that it is well received.
Thanks, Tiana. So Becca, do you want to take question 2?
Yeah, sorry, there was a delay because I was sending Tiana's email address out, and of course I did it at like the worst moment. So Tiana, thank you so much for doing that intro of BLM Morristown, and I am going to move on to the next question. But I really appreciate that you covered something that you sent to me in advance, that BLM Morristown is more than an activism organization, that we are community and for community. And I think that's something that both you and Xiomara do so well. And that's why we're especially happy to have you here today. So for the next follow-up question, Tiana, I think, sort of got into this with the training suggestion. And so if you'd like to expand on this, Tiana, or if Xiomara would like to give her own recommendations, we'd really love to hear from you how you might suggest that we push back and advocate for more nuanced, intersectional accounting for the populations that we serve in our system.
I can start this one. I think that it's important that we have to look deeper into the policies of these organizations and our agencies, like and I'm talking about the ones that we see our clients are going to, or they are promoting that they have these resources or they have received these fundings, because we see this and then we see the clients also being turned away or denied because they don't qualify. So I think we have to look deeper into those policies. So if we have clients coming back and saying, hey, I applied, I did everything you wanted, but I got denied, we can't just say, okay. We have to be like, okay, well, let me do my part now. And now let me go look into their policies. Let me go look into their qualifications. I think that, we have to look for some loopholes, and if it comes down to it, we're going to have to request like transcripts or seeing who they have serviced in the past 5 years. And it's not like, we want to catch an agency or organization doing something that they shouldn't be doing. But, we have to hold the decision makers accountable. And I think that just goes hand in hand with acknowledging that institutional racism exists and how to change it and to stop the cycle. And I think sometimes people get so scared of hearing that name, right? Institutional racism or systemic racism, like, oh no, that's not here. That's never been us. But like, long before, this younger generation came in and may take over director or CEO, there are people that were before them. And I think that a lot of people don't understand that, or may not even like think about it. Like because I see, like, at times I might try to face somebody and I'm like, well, there's some things that's going on within your system, maybe it should be checked out. And they're like, oh no, not at all. We've changed, you might hear a lot. We changed our entire staff. We added a diversity, equity, inclusion policy. Like, that's cool. Thank you for doing that. Thank you for acknowledging there are different people out here in this world that exist. However, let's take a look at the people that came to serve this organization before you got here, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 50 years ago, because that will say a lot and that will show us a lot. And that really honestly is the information that we will need to be able to help our clients in the future. It's like, okay, well, I found this loophole and I don't want to call you out on it too crazy, but like, how can we work together to fix this? And it really starts with, like I said, the CEOs, the CFOs, the decision makers, really saying, taking a step back, acknowledging that there is some type of cracks in their system, and being open to work with us, being open to say, hey, I understand what you're saying there. We are trying to make these changes, but I do see that there was a lot of things done wrong the last 40 years before I came. And it just starts there. And I think that's really where we can benefit, and we can really help our community members in excelling in the resources that they're really truly looking for.
Thank you. I'll just add that, I think that's really important, and it's something that we here have tried to do internally in terms of our policies and how we collect our data. And even if nobody asks us for that data, we want to know that data. And Tiana's right, it comes from leadership, right? So what's important to us will go down, will kind of trickle down into what we do every day. But from the perspective of someone who receives funding from sources that are kind of never flexible, I would say home energy assistance and weatherization is one of those programs where we have to say no to people just because of the rules that they have. And you're right, Deanna, right? We accept this funding and we kind of live with the rules that they give us. The one thing though that we've tried to do is kind of be part of their conversations, right? So even though it's more work for us, and now my staff is not always happy about having to, be part of conversations in Trenton when they had to commute to Trenton, or now that there are, but we want to be part of those workforce task force to kind of bring these issues, and I can't say that we've changed a lot or everything we wanted to do, but things have little by little started to change when it comes to home energy assistance. There's been like little changes here and there that will benefit, clients. And, I think the scary part for me right now is that there is a lot of talk of a lot of CARES Act money or American Reinvestment Act funding coming for a lot of these programs. And I just always think about exactly what Tiana just said. Who is part of those conversations? Who's going to make up these rules? Do they even know what these rules should be and who they're affecting? And I think that, that is the one place that we have to continue to work on. So definitely, that advocacy is always needed at all levels, and to understand the importance of it. And then, just here in Morris County, we can even, kind of try to change what we do here locally and in our county level. I know that, when I think about the race question, the one place that I get so annoyed at filling it out is the census. I can't really change what the census is going to do, but we can change what we do here in Morris County and what we collect. So I think the conversation and the bringing and the education and making sure that this is always part of the conversation, and all the rooms that we're in, I try to do it as an ED, and I hope, and I push my staff to do the same, is really important to have this in mind wherever we're at.
Yeah, thank you both so much. And, just listening to you both speak about ways that we can advocate. And, I love kind of what you both touched on, which is this idea that we're still reckoning with decisions made 4 decades ago, 5 decades ago, even 20 years ago. And so the fact that there is so much change and movement around diversity, equity, and inclusion right now in Morris County is wonderful, but it doesn't necessarily repair the provide the equivalent response to decades of policymaking, grant funding, programmatic structure. And so, we really do have an immense task ahead of us. So I do want to kind of move to the next question for the two of you. So in this conversation, I think that what we're doing is talking a lot about how Morris County looks maybe differently than people perceive Morris County looking, right? Morris County looks like lots of things. There's lots of different communities and communities within communities. And these people need services like housing, which is sort of the focus of the CAS subcommittee group. And so what I wanted the two of you to share together and share with us is any feedback that you've heard from the community about their needs and the limitations that they're facing in getting those needs met. And Xiomara, we could start with you.
Sure, thanks. So when I looked at this question and when you guys put the question, first thing that came to my mind is that one of the things that we always hear from our clients is that they want to go to a place where they trust. So people who they feel they can trust, that actually want to help, that are respectful in the manner that they speak to our clients. And I think that that is across the board something that we get from all of our clients. Again, we're not only serving Hispanics. That's the name of the organization. That's how it was founded in 1976. But that's not who we see, and specifically through our programs like home energy assistance and weatherization. But the one thing that is consistent with every client is that when they walk in to ask for something or ask for questions or ask for help, they want to make sure that they're coming to a place that they trust and that they feel respected. So I think language, and here is not only being bilingual, but it's the language that we speak, the language that we address our clients with is important, right? if we have to say no to someone because they don't fulfill the requirements for home energy, there has to be a way that we're saying this in a way that we can get the message to our clients in a respectful manner. And I talk to my clients, I talk to my staff constantly about language. And then, yeah, for us and in our organization, bilingualism and having multiple languages is very important, right? So being able to speak to clients who need help, and then being able to translate to our clients what they need to do to get help. You know, what are the different procedures to do that? I think for us, you know, the limitations are not only language, but literacy levels, and literacy levels not only in language, because we have clients who sometimes walk in and have languages that are not even English or Spanish, maybe indigenous languages or of different countries that are just not part of our expertise. And then the other literacy, and that came up, was even highlighted in a bigger way last year, was technology literacy, right? The access and how to use technology was huge, especially within our clients and our community. So the access to have technology, not everybody has laptops, even though we want to believe they do, they don't. They might just have internet through their phones, and filling out applications or filling out different things through a phone is not the same. It's difficult for many people, or even understanding, you know, an example that I put is that last year, yeah, a lot of people were eligible for unemployment benefits, but we had so many clients that didn't have an email. In order to receive unemployment benefits or apply for unemployment benefits, you had to have an email. So we had to sit with clients and create emails and then make sure that they understood the email and that they had their passwords written down somewhere, or they're not going to forget. And so it's like, you know, it's not only like here, the help is here, but how did we get there, right? And so that when I talk about literacy levels, it's just everything, right? So language and then the access, right? So what did that access look like? For many of our families, we loaned out computers that, for, you know, a lot of the families that didn't have anything, and it could have been our oldest computer was better than what they had at home. So I mean, that is something that we think as a given, that we all have that, and we don't all have that. So how does that affect the community, and how do they get help if everything we're doing now is online, right? Everything is virtual now, but not everybody can live in that world or lives in that world all the time. And I think that the third thing that affects many of our clients is having their legal status, right? So we have clients who are undocumented, we have clients who are documented, we have clients who have homes where half of the family is documented and the other is not. So how does that, the legal status and having mixed households, affect our clients is a constant, right? So there's some clients that can apply for some services because someone in their household has a status, then there's others that can't. But it's still humans, right? It's still people who are right now suffering through the same things that everybody else in the community is suffering. And so that has been a great barrier, and it's been something that we've faced limitations for, where we've had to go out and find private funding, people who are willing to donate to help someone with a rent, because rental assistance is not for everyone in our community. And so, you know, I think that there's been so many issues in the past, and then this past year through the pandemic, it just heightened at a greater level that is been, you know, also learning for us, you know, what else to look, and being creative outside of, you know, just telling someone, sorry, you know, we can't help you, but looking for other ways to help in this past year. So I think those are kind of the three kind of tiers that I see the most with our clients.
Yes, I've heard that a lot about language, how people are spoken to. Like, that is big, because that can really deter a family for years. Like, they will not ask for assistance for one particular organization because how somebody spoke with them 2 years before. And so that's really big. I'm so happy that you mentioned that. Another thing that I see, a couple things, is the income barriers, right? The first thing you say, you know, when you say, oh, you know, I'm from Morris County. Oh, Morris County is the richest county in New Jersey, or one of the richest county in New Jersey. And so even, you know, with that statement alone, you're already overlooking the underserved communities, because you already have these high expectations of what Morris County looks like. And, many times you have people who are barely making it, making their ends meet. But when they're applying for assistance, they're being told they make too much, because in Morris County, they're following this certain type of standard. And it's just like, it doesn't add up, because, I've experienced myself where I'm like, I've been denied services and they're calculating the gross and not the take home. And then when you go to argue this, like, well, wait a minute, I don't see that. And they're like, yeah, we know, but this is what we're calculating. We calculated that already. And it's like, no. There's no way that you calculated this, because I don't see this money. So I think, that's a big thing. And I think we have to really start having conversations surrounding that. And, having whoever is making this decision on what poor looks like in numbers, like another person really shouldn't be able to tell me what poor looks like, right? Because then I'm the one being denied these services. You're the policymaker, but I'm being denied the services because you're telling me what poor looks like. And another thing that I'm seeing a lot is public transportation is far in between for Morris County, right? So, we're not like Union County, Essex, Passaic, Bergen, Hudson, where public transportation is very useful for the community there. They get wherever they need, to go, whether it's work or, wherever they need to go. But when you talk about Morris County, it's like, and you're trying to give them these resources, especially if you find housing or a voucher, it's like, well, that sounds nice, but like, how can I get to and from? How can I go and get my kids from the bus and then make it to work and over here, because I don't have transportation? And, in my work, I'm working in Patterson and, serving that community. And when opportunity may arise where, hey, I'm trying to say, look, I may have found housing outside of Passaic County. I might've found housing in Morris County. They are scared. They're scared to leave Passaic County, regardless if they're homeless and living out of a shelter or a hotel. They're scared to leave because the transportation issue in Morris County, it's not available. And it's a scary thing to say, okay, well, if I move here because I know it'll be better, what are the sacrifices that have to come with that? And if the sacrifices for this family outweighs having a house, having a roof over their head, then they're not going to go. And I think that we just have to have more of those conversations, whether we're talking about, okay, how can we, lessen the transportation barrier? How can we kind of get rid of the stigma of the income barriers when we're sending these families for these resources? How can we get rid of that and have the conversation surrounding, I have to meet a certain, I can't go over 50,000 and I'm a family of 3, but like, I'm just at that cutoff, but God forbid I get a bonus and they capture that in my, my taxes. Now I no longer qualify for this affordable housing. I no longer qualify. So I think we just have to have more of those conversations surrounding transportation and getting rid of these guidelines that, there has to be some flexibility in it, because I'm not seeing any flexibility. They're building all these apartments, these luxury apartments all over New Jersey. And they're like, okay, we met our, our affordable income, like we met our deadline or our limit for our town. But it's like, okay, well, this doesn't do anything because we still have homelessness still up to here. And you said that you gave us, this affordable housing that can only still serve this, but then you keep plucking them off the list because of these guidelines that we want them. It's unrealistic guidelines that we want our families to meet or clients to meet. But then, so we end up, the families are still homeless and we're having the conversation again. So I think that's big.
Totally agree with all of that. You've raised so many important points, and you probably just listed like 7 more topics for us to cover in future CAS conversations. So thank you for that. Just putting it on a silver platter for us. And not to make light of it, like these are, if you're lucky, you're a service provider pulling your hair out over these barriers. And if you're not, you're living this, and this is preventing you from being able to like have the dignity of stable housing, have access to food, education, like all these things that are considered basic rights, and we're not able to do it in our current system. And no one size fits all. So both of you touched so well on how important accessibility is. I would love to hear from each of you, and Tiana, if you want to just keep going with what you were just saying, what are some considerations in program design from your perspective? So program design and implementation of these programs that would promote service provision that's better meeting the unique needs of our underserved population. And I recognize that's a loaded question, so we'll go wherever you would like with it.
It's fine. I believe in canvassing and like physical contact with people, boots on the ground. I think that that's the only way to truly find out like the unique needs of the underserved communities. I also believe that we often just don't ask people what their needs are. We just assume, or based off the application that they provided, that those are their needs. But like, let's dig a little deeper. Let's find out really what the needs are. And I think also social media is very big. And I think that agencies and some organizations have to accept that and start to use it to their benefit. You know, I feel like a lot of these organizations or agencies are so old school still. We have to really dig into this social media, because this is where the young people, this new generation is. This is where you're going to find out what people need, when you can really say, hey, look, let's hop on this Zoom. Let's get in here. Meet me in a park. That's what people are tuning into. And I think we also have to stop being afraid of asking the hard questions and be okay with being uncomfortable. And advocating is not always pretty. And as an agency, you have to be okay with that if you truly want to find the underlying issue within the community you serve. It's not always going to be sunshine and rainbows. You're going to have to get your hands a little dirty. And that's what I say. It's really, to me, it starts with boots on the ground. I'm not afraid to go knock on your door to say, hey, what do you need? How can I better serve you? Because that's when you really will see, one, who's in your community, and two, what they need.
Yes, thank you, Tiana. And as I was writing my notes before Tiana said this, I had, as service providers, we always learn that we need to meet people where they are at, right? So so this is more than just when they walk into your office, figuring out where they're at. I think, like Tiana, that we need to do more of going to where our clients are at, right? This goes to that trust issue. If we're waiting in our nice offices or in buildings that are inaccessible by transportation, and I'm with Tiana on transportation. We've provided transportation for so many years, and our funding goes up and down and up and down. And I feel like every time I'm at a needs assessment for Morris County, transportation is a big issue, but I don't see it in the funding that we're being provided. So I always find that to be interesting. But yeah, I think we definitely need to go and find our clients and meet them where they're at. I think that Tiana's absolutely right about social media. It's something that we must invest in. We try to invest in it as much as we can and provide all information in both English and Spanish, which are the two languages that are most seen by our clients. I also think that one of the things that, may be very specific as one of my wants is that in a lot of our program, when we're implementing and designing, we never think about this issue of language and needs, right? And so if somebody needs interpretation or translation, we never talk about that, right? We never think about, are we hiring staff member to do this? Are we using language lines? Are we using Google Translate? What is it that we're going to use? Does it have costs? And are they reliable? Right. So it's not, I can honestly tell you, if you do Google Translate, you should not copy and paste. It is not enough. Right. But so I think that when we're doing, especially right now, as we're doing, crisis housing funding and other things, have we even thought about that? do we even think about something so simple as a language line, and does it have cost, and should that be part of our program implementation when we think about talking to everyone? And again, that might be very specific to us because that's one of the needs that we see, but we see that through all of our service lines. We have clients who are from the Middle East or from Asia, and we have issues talking to them. And so we use this constantly as part of what we do in our organization, but I think this should be something that a lot of other organizations do as well. So yeah.
And so when you said the thing about Google Translate, I definitely had to raise my hand in shame, right? Because I think that what you're both speaking to is this idea that our tools in our program design have to be culturally competent. If you're not using the right social media platforms, you're not culturally competent. If you're not using the right translation tools, you're not culturally competent. If you don't have leadership and direct service staff who are diverse, you are not culturally competent. And so I think that's what you were both really saying pretty clearly. And that's something that agencies need to consider when they're designing their programs, right? Like, where is the cultural competency lens coming in to make sure that you're providing services in the right way to people? So thank you so much for that. So I have the pleasure of the last question. It's not even a question, it's finishing a statement. So to conclude this conversation between the two of you today, before we open up to any questions that attendees may have, I would really love for each of you to complete the following statement. The number one strength of the individuals and communities we work with is blank. So Xiomara, please.
Sure, and this was kind of like my gut reaction was using the word resilient, right? I find that and I always tell this to my clients and to everyone that listens. I believe our communities are resilient communities, right? Not only the one that I'm serving, but that was my gut reaction, right? So and that's a great word, and you guys understand it. But here's where, once I started to think about it, that also can be one of our biggest weaknesses. And I'll tell you why, right? I feel that we are so resilient and survivors, and we find a way to do it within what we have, right? We learn to fight and trust what we've been told, but then we forget that we can actually advocate and change these systems, right? We have learned to live within the systems that we've been given. And that might be a great thing, but at the same time might be one of those things that, if we want to change them, we can't continue to live within them and accept them. We need to be able to do more than that. So, my gut reaction, resilient, yes, but at the same time, that's only taught us to live within these systems, right? So now we need to push these systems to change, and that's where we need to learn to fight for other things as well as we continue to survive in the systems that we live in.
That was my word. That was the word I was gonna use, because that was my gut. I've seen so many individuals and families go through so much trauma after trauma after trauma, and I speak that through my own trauma. And resilience is the word that comes to me. I think that with that, it can also be a weakness. But I think with having supports in place, and continue to have these conversations and educating community service providers, I think that will go a long way with achieving and accomplishing the things that we are working on and talking about today. I think if we continue to just support our families and I was going to say advocate for our families. No, we need to teach our families to advocate for themselves. And I think by doing that, if we can hand over the tools and really empower them, then they'll become their own service provider, if that makes sense. So, yeah.
Thank you so much, both of you. So I think now, unless Becca, you have anything you want to say or add before we move to the attendees for Q&A, please add it, Becca. Thank you.
Thank you. No, I just was about to transition to the Q&A as well. There's so much to think about. I've never had so many notes scribbled down after one of these meetings that we've had on here. So many things to think about, so many things to do, so much more to learn. And there's been some really great comments in the chat. So I know that some people may not want to speak up, and I can always ask questions directly from the chat, but I would encourage anyone who'd like to share a thought to unmute themselves now and just raise your question or comment to the group.
Becca?
Yes, hi.
This is Herman Scott, Reverend Herman Scott from the Morris County Correctional Facility. I have enjoyed so far the conversation that has been had. I have one question, well, two comments. One, about the self-advocacy. Sometimes people have become so damaged by the system that self-advocacy is a great challenge. So I think to some degree, some of the service providers, and this is specifically to Tiana, some of the service providers may need to fill in that gap in terms of being advocacy for some of our people, because to your point that she had made, they have been hurt, they lack trust in the system, and this has been systemic. They themselves are afraid to even pursue the very resources that they need. So sometimes I find myself here in the prison having to do that, to become the advocacy or the voice for those who have no voice. Because in some cases, the self-esteem, when you have to question yourself in terms of how do I identify myself, that's damaging. And here again, that is a part of the conversation that needs to be had here in America in terms of the critical race theory, where we systemically have create these social constructs to identify who people are. And I think for the sake of argument, we all are human. I think the need should drive the services, not the race or the color of a person. So these are just comments that I wanted to make here, because to our service providers, both Xiomara and Tiana, thank you. You have a tremendous task in front of you. However, don't give up the fight, because you have some supporters out here. We just need to come together and get behind you. But I know that the critical race theory conversation needs to be had here across America, and especially here in Morris County.
Thank you so much, Reverend. Does anyone, oh yes, please, I'm sorry.
Yeah, can I ask just a brief question? It's kind of a follow-up on what Herman just said. Advocacy is really critical, and it's critical at the local level. And I'm just wondering, as Xiomara's been here for a long time, and has had a lot of political contacts in the community with the county government and local governments. I'm not sure exactly what Tiana and Black Lives Matter have been doing as far as approaching local government officials to make their case. Where does political activism or political advocacy fit into your both of your program activities?
I can start answering that first. Thank you, Jeff and Herman, for your comments. Black Lives Matter Morristown started in 2016 after the death of Philando Castillo, and we have continued to make it aware in our own neighborhoods the discrepancies of, the traffic stops for Black and Brown community members versus white. We continue to have the conversation, especially most recent over last summer when we held a 10-week summer series visiting in multiple towns within Morris County some towns holding teach-ins and some towns having protests and rallies. But during these times, we are demanding transparency within the police departments and the school systems. And we are doing our research ahead of time, and we're seeing a lot of discrepancies in how people are treated, whether it's in the school or whether it's in the communities, and we're calling it out. We have had multiple sit downs with school boards across Morris County to implement trainings in the school districts. We have also sat down with police chiefs to discuss, where there can be some change. Also, the prosecutor's office, we are actually planning another sit down with them to see what has changed since last meeting with them, and just continue to make them aware of the community's concerns, and making sure that making sure that the movement continues and that we are all going in a more positive, inclusive direction where the people, the Black and Brown communities across Morris County feel safe, whether it's in school or within the community when dealing with the police. So those are conversations that we're actively having. And we're also having those conversations within schools as far as being invited to speak to, I spoke, I think last fall to a class in Montclair State University. I spoke to an 8th grade class in Inglewood about media and the transparency that needs to happen within, reporting real news versus fake news. So, conversations is a continuing thing. And I think that as long as we continue to have the support from people and, word of mouth, we're always looking to have these conversations with young and old within religious space or schools. So yeah.
Thank you, Herman and Jeff, again, for your comments and questions and for your support. I can honestly say that felt the support from both of you throughout the years, especially Jeff, as we've sat in many advisory boards together. So, to answer your question, like the big cynic in me wants to really just tell you that nothing has really happened politically, and I have no problem having conversations and going and having sit downs, but it depends on the day and the person and the program if we're going to have support or not with what we're doing. And I say program because I feel home energy and weatherization is kind of the program that many politicians are like and support, and we get letters saying hey, we're glad you're getting this funding. But when it comes to many of our other programs, not so much, right? And one of that has been the creation of the Center for Citizenship and Legal Immigration. So, many, as a nonprofit, we have to be nonpartisan, and I get that. But I think that we also have to do what our community needs. And so when we created the Immigration Center, we got some backlash from some politicians, and not just because the word immigration and who you're serving can be controversial at times, depending on who. So it's been an interesting ride. I think the politicians, there's been a new wave of politicians now, right? So even the commissioners have changed. I think that's the new word, right? They're no freeholders anymore. And so I think they've been a little bit more supportive. Actually had conversations, with Mickey Sherrill over how COVID affected the Latino community and that sort of thing. But, I feel that until there are real actions, after these conversations where I pour my heart out and tell you what I think our community needs are, and nothing happens afterwards, I'm not really sure how effective we've been. Does that make any sense? And I can have these conversations, and I have no qualms talking to, senators and whomever, but I always feel, I guess the word is frustrated or disappointed. I don't know, whatever you want to take it as, where there's not enough action taken afterwards. But
I think to both of you, I think it's really important just to get the message into the hands of the power brokers, of the people who have the power locally. I think in this community, you're talking about mayors, and you're talking about school boards, and you're talking about county commissioners, the former freeholders. And I think if you go to them with accurate presentations of facts and needs within your communities, that they might listen. No guarantees, but if you go with constructive proposals, at least they have to hear them. They may not like them, they may not want to support them, but at least they have to hear them. So somehow, community activism is important, and I think political activism is important too, because that's where the decisions are made, especially here in Morris County. I think that's very much true here. So just in terms of just advice, it's just to try to work some form of this into your programming, and build up as much support as you can, and take them to the mountaintop. Let speak to power, and see if you can at least educate. If you can't convince, maybe you can educate. So that's just a general statement. And I'm not good at this myself, because I'm probably one of the most impolitic people you'll ever meet. But that's.
You bring up some great points. I did just want to answer that last comment that you had made. It's we have to also be aware of the politic game, right? And I think that within since 2016, I have recognized and acknowledged when I'm being used for political gain, and also to separate where we're not a parade, right? These are human beings that we're working with who are hurting, and we're not part of your political game, right? So if we're really going to talk, let's have a conversation. And what we are often seeing is they want to people, the people in the decision roles, the policymakers, they want to talk when it's a political year, right? They want to talk in front of a camera. They want to talk in front of a news reporter. And I'm not open to that anymore, because, this is real life. And so we have absolutely taken, say proposals of, hey, this is what needs to happen. This is what needs to change. But we're not going to have the conversation on the forefront anymore, because the real change happens behind the doors. Let's close all the doors. Let's sit down and have a conversation. And that's really when we'll see who's really wants to listen, who really wants to see change in their community. And I welcome all mayors, police chiefs, commissioners to come out and say, hey, Tiana, let's have a conversation without the reporters. Let's have a conversation without the light. And let's get some real stuff done. So I'm completely open to all that. So I hope that people take that with open invitation, because we're serious.
Your point is well taken, and I'm sure you're doing what you need to do. But I think there's a lot of denial in this community in terms of whether there are problems and what the problems really are, and who's at fault and who's the cause, and what there's a lot of preconceived ideas that are pretty strongly embedded in this community. And I think it's a tough fight. So, at some point you got to get out there and just tell the story.
So I just want to interject for a moment, because we do have a comment in the chat. So I just want to make sure that gets a voice and platform. So the comment question is, have any of these conversations been shared with Morris area together, NJ together? I am hearing all of the same concerns here as I do with that organization. So I don't know if anyone can speak to that comment question. And if not, maybe the person who commented, if you were able to take yourself off of mute and maybe add some more context, that would be great.
Yes. This is Marnie Collar, and I have been working with Morris area together since it started, really, right before COVID. Actually, they had done some things even before that, but and I've kind of gotten into the mental health, substance abuse part of it, but there are three concerns: housing, affordable housing, criminal justice, and the mental health, substance use problems. And I'm hearing all this same concerns from those of you who have been talking here. And I'm just, I'm always thinking, isn't it the best if we can combine forces? I think it's it kind of becomes unproductive when we have a lot of people working in different entities for the same thing. And I'm just curious more than anything, because this is all so new to me. I've not been involved in anything like this before recently, and I want to do whatever I can to help. We had a meeting at Caldwell Playground on Sunday with Manahan Village folks, and heard what their concerns are. And we're going forward with that. And we've heard from transportation that motive care, used to be logistic care, is so horrible. We're going forward with that. But it sounds to me like you folks are doing the same things. And I'm just curious that there's not been any interfacing here. And like I said, I'm not a leader. I'm sort of the leader in the mental health, but I'm not the organizational leader. Do all of you know what Morris Area Together is and New Jersey Together?
Marnie, if you could actually provide some more information on that, that would be wonderful.
Okay, well, New Jersey Together started in Jersey City about 5 or 6 years ago. Right. And the lead organizer is Frank McMillan, and he came, and it's all under the auspices of IAF, it's a very strange title, I think, but it's Industrial Areas Foundation. It's the largest and oldest multi-faith based organizing network. And they started in Jersey City, and then some folks in Morristown asked them if they could do the same thing in Morristown, Morris County. And so the lead organizer, and they now have another assistant organizer, we're working in Morristown, Morris County. And we have been for, I guess, for about, well, over a year, but last fall or last summer, we did, I was so interested in what one of you said about going to the people and asking them what they need rather than telling them what they need. And we had 2,400 surveys, and the people identified what they wanted to see happen. And that's when the 3 areas were identified: affordable housing, criminal justice, and the mental health wasn't even on the list, but it came to the top. So those 3 areas, we have teams working in all 3 areas. And I don't think I can say that a whole lot of concrete action has been taken, but boy, it's getting there. It's really getting close. Each team has specific asks that they're making. We launched the program in front of 650 people on Zoom in May. Right. And we had, like I said, we had 650 people. We had the CEO of Logistic Care, we had the mayor, and we had the prosecutor. And so we're really, really, really working. But I'm hearing you all saying the same things. And I think it's curious that there's been no connection.
So I think that, Marnie, something that you're highlighting is, we're talking about advocacy, but also when we're talking about racial equity work, allyship is so important. So, if you are a person who has the ear of Logistic Care, or you have the ear of the mayor of a certain town where we know people of color are being underserved, how do you, in your own scope and power, right, ally with people who are doing the work with underserved BIPOC communities? How do you get them to the table? Because, I think it's great, and Tiana kind of mentioned it, like, it's great to say, like, oh, you can do this, you can talk to this person, you can, write this letter, whatever. But at the end of the day, we need to have allies as well who help make those connections, because sometimes it is those allyship bridges that help widen the conversation and bring new people to the table. And so in the beginning of this presentation, this event today, I'd asked people to really set an intention for what they could do within their power and scope to really address this issue of people of color being disproportionately affected by homelessness in Morris County. And what it sounds like is that there are so many conversations happening and wheels turning, and we're not connecting and allying enough. And so maybe this is a call to allies to really come together and connect around this imperative. So I just wanted to sort of pull it back and bring it into broader context.
I agree with everything you said. And I do think that, because obviously in all three of these areas, it was very apparent to us very early on that we're mostly speaking of people of color and the underserved in the community, of course. And so, yeah, I somehow think I'm surprised there hasn't been connection before now. As I said, I'm totally new about this. When I started in on the mental health part of it, there were so many acronyms. I would write them all down and then I would look them up to try to figure out who in the heck did I just talk to? And there's just so much I've had to learn. And I'm sure it's the same way for those who have done the criminal justice part and the housing. So I don't know where to go with this, I don't know, to speak. I would certainly speak with Frank about it, the lead organizer, but I don't know of you all who we should try to draw into this, because we are really, I would say we are really close to getting some real action done.
So maybe just as an offline follow-up to this event, people who want to have their information shared with one another, put your name and your contact information in the chat of this Zoom. And then Becca and I, as the co-facilitators of this event, can make sure that people who want to be connected and have their program information shared can do so, okay?
Oh, that would really be wonderful. And yeah, so, and then would you send that to Frank or to me, or?
Marnie, let
Yes.
me make I would suggest that you go back to Frank directly and share your observations about this meeting and you know where it might connect. There are a lot of organizations that are working kind of independently on related things in the county. I mean, this whole forum is sponsored by the COC, and I don't want to talk for Allison or any of the COC leadership that's on this call, but that's one vehicle that could conceivably help make things happen in the community. MAT is another one that could help make things happen. There are representatives here from the Human Services Advisory Council, myself being one of them, that has some influence on human services and social issues in the community. Your point, I think, is valid, Marty, that there are a lot of disparate entities working on common things, and maybe there's a need for better communication. Maybe we can figure it out if we just take the message back to leadership of those organizations and see if they can figure it out.
And I see a lot of people entering their contact information in the chat. And so, again, broader scope context, along with being a conversation about racial equity, today is also really an information sharing opportunity. I suspect that many people on this call today don't necessarily know what's happening at MCOA or Black Lives Matter Morristown, right? And so we wanted to highlight and give voice to the hard and important work that's happening in those really BIPOC-centric agencies and organizations, but also for others on this call to get connected. And as Becca alluded to earlier, we hope that this is the first of several of these kinds of conversations. So we hope that this is just kind of like phase one of an evolving conversation that happens in Morris County. So if you'd like to connect with one another, information share, please put your info in the chat. We have 5 minutes left, so I did want to see if anyone else had a question or comment. And if not, I will send it over to Becca to thank our speakers again and close us out for the afternoon. So any other questions or comments?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
So, hi, I'm the real Allison Burns. I apologize for that strange occurrence earlier where everybody was in Allison Burns. So I am Allison Del Calzo Burns. I am the vice chair of the Morris County Continuum Care Executive Committee and the chair of CAS. And so I did want to make sure that I, because Jeff kind of said he can't speak, but I can a little bit. I want to just first of all thank the presenters today, our facilitators, Becca and Lana as well. A lot of work went into this and I really appreciate it. And I just wanted to address the concern about the amount of things that we do across the county and duplication, and that is being addressed. I have had my finger on the pulse of the Morris Together, North Jersey Together Morris chapter, and I do to make sure that we're not over duplicating. And I do believe that these conversations are important in multiple places. We need to be having these conversations. And I know that the challenge with that for so many of us is certainly that we keep having conversations and then we're not feeling like progress is being made. And I just wanted to address that too, is that I think that especially with committee work, but just in general, all of these kinds of things, change happens slowly. We want change to happen quickly, and change sometimes can happen quickly. And I know I've heard a couple of examples where, community anger and frustration has led to quick changes. And that is good and powerful, and I am all for that. But a lot of change in communities happens slowly, and it's painstaking, and it takes these conversations and this work and all of us coming together on a regular basis and bringing one more person to this meeting and one more person to this conversation every time to really get the importance and the reality across to people. And I think that, Jeff did mention earlier that sometimes it's, and I think this is probably true across the nation, but it's certainly true in Morris County, that we have this is not a problem here kind of a feeling, where a lot of people just don't see. And so having these conversations regularly is so key to getting people just to see. And I think a lot of the people in this Zoom room see. I don't always understand. I don't always see everything. And so I think these conversations, I don't care how often we duplicate these conversations, let's keep having them. And so that said, I hear that concern about duplication across the board. And so we're definitely going to keep trying to address that on the COC level, and do what we can do. But again, so I just wanted to make that as my final comment. I so appreciate everybody who came into the Zoom room today. I so appreciate Tiana and Xiomara for coming in, your great, powerful, wonderful, beautiful words of encouragement and also frustration. And I think both of those things are we can hold them together and in the same space really, really well. So thank you very much.
I think Allison put it perfectly. I don't think I could really wrap this up any better than that. Really, thank you to everybody who participated. And of course, the wonderful women who led us through this conversation, Tiana and Xiomara. We've had a couple comments about are we duplicating work? The point is that we have to keep talking about this. So while there's a lot of things that I would love to say right now, I won't. I will respect everybody's time. We will continue these conversations. So please come to CAS meetings, reach out. If you want to know how, if you have an idea and you want to know how to do it, you can reach out to me. I will put my email address in the chat. We'll follow up with an email, and we'll make sure that you get connected to the people who can steer you in the right direction and make sure that we're all working together. I think that was really really the point, was like, if everybody is working so hard, but we're doing it in a fragmented way, it's really hard to make change happen that way. So how do we make sure that we're all on the same page, that we're sending the clear, consistent message that's in line with what Tiana and Xiomara are already doing. We want to follow their lead. That's why we had this conversation today. So thank you, everyone. Until next time, I'm looking forward to next time. And just once again, thank you for being here. Have a great day.
Thanks, everyone.